the Southern Ohio Farm Show. This is Gigi Neal of OSU Extension in Claremont County, Agricultural and Natural Resources Educator.
I'm James Morris, the Agricultural and Natural Resources and Community Development Educator for the Ohio State University Extension in Brown County.
And I'm Brooke Beam, the Ohio State University Extension Educator for Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Community Development in Highland County. And we will be your hosts for the Southern Ohio Farm Show.
Hello and welcome to the August 12th episode of the Southern Ohio Farm Show. This week we have a wide variety of topics and a lot of great information for you. We have Clifton Martin, who is an OSU Extension educator with us, who is going to be providing some tips on managing multiflora roses. We'll also have Ivory Harlow, who will be joining us to talk about retail and restaurant sales for farms. And we'll also have Dave Apsley back again this week for some tree identification. And this week he'll be telling us about the fringe tree. And finally, we'll close out with Brooke Beam, who will be giving us some home video production tips. And Brooke will be giving us some tips on how we can make our lighting and sound better for our home production.
Now we have with us Clifton Martin of Muskingum County Extension, where he's the Agriculture and Natural Resource Educator. And he's going to be talking to us a little bit about the multiflora rose.
Right here we have the famous multiflora rose. Throughout Ohio, this now is one of our most famous weeds. And this particular one, it's really chewed up by the Japanese beetles. But yeah, we find this a lot in our pasture fields. It would kind of fall in that category of a woody weed. Sometimes takes a little bit extra work to get the woody weeds managed. A lot of our broadleaf herbicides will work on it. Most of our animals are going to graze around it and leave it. They're going to leave them alone. You might find goats that'll go after it, but again, most of our beef livestock, they're going to avoid it. Mowing alone, again, it's one of these plants that you can't just mow. Whatever you leave behind, it'll allow new growth to come from what you leave behind. So you have to have kind of a multi-faceted approach to it. It kind of brings up this issue of overgrazing and undergrazing. And a lot of and those are two situations we try to avoid. If you overgraze, it gives a lot of opportunities for a lot of poisonous weeds to develop and come in because your forage stand just can't compete. And if you undergraze, your perennial weeds like your multiflora rose, your ironweed, they have more of an opportunity to thrive and survive in that setting.
Next up is Ivory Harlow. She'll be discussing restaurant and retail sales for farms.
Are you currently selling at the farmer's market from a farm stand or direct from the farm and interested in breaking into the restaurant and retail sales? Well, what makes restaurant and retail sales different? That's something we're going to talk about today. The first thing that makes selling to restaurants and retail establishments different is access to the buyer. Chefs are busy and restaurant buyers are busy people, especially on weekends. It is super hard to access those individuals. Grocery buyers as well, that's a lot of inventory. So making sure you can access those people when it's convenient to them is going to benefit them and benefit you. Taking a good look at the retail establishment or visiting the restaurant, taking in what's on their menu, enjoying dinner from the restaurant to see if your farm products are a good fit is a great idea. Visiting the retail establishment, doing some shopping, looking at the other products that are similar to yours, and those price points are going to give you a good idea of how you can provide a solution in your product to those buyers. What are some concerns that retail and restaurant buyers might have about purchasing your product? The first thing to know is retail and restaurant buyers are more price sensitive than the folks that you're probably selling direct to at the farmer's market. They need to produce those menu items or sell to their customers and still maintain a profit margin. So take a look around as you're visiting those locations at what the current price points are, and be realistic about wholesale pricing when you approach the restaurant and retail buyers. The second thing that's different is volume. If a restaurant is going to offer a strawberry shortcake, for example, using local strawberries, they're going to need a volume of strawberries that's sufficient to put that item on the menu. Making sure that you produce at a volume that works well with the retail or restaurant environment is key. Another thing to consider that concerns restaurant and retail buyers is the quality and the quantity and consistency of the item. So make sure that you are producing a high quality item that is a consistent product for those buyers is key. Next, they may be used to working with a distributor that comes twice a week delivering all of their goods, or a broker, and not used to working with individual producers. So making it easy for the restaurant buyer or the retail buyer to manage that relationship is key. That might mean varying your delivery schedule according to their needs, or keeping in mind that they're used to invoicing once and have a 30 to 60 to 90-day payment schedule instead of paying you as you drop those things off. These are all items to bring to the meeting with the restaurant or retail buyer and clarify those things up front. So, in summary, do your homework. Visit the restaurant, visit the retail establishment, see what's there, enjoy items off the menu, and make sure that your farm products are a good fit for their business. Also, bring professional marketing materials, including price sheets, branding, and other marketing materials that communicate the value of your farm products. Thanks so much.
Dave Apsley's back with his tree identification. Today's tree of choice is the fringe tree.
Hello, I'd like to introduce you to one of my favorite trees that's native to Ohio. It's actually native to our southern counties, from Gallia, Meigs, over to probably Scioto and Adams County. Not a common plant at all. It's here in Jackson County. In fact, there's a nice native population close to my home here, just north of Jackson. And then the furthest most population of native plants that I'm aware of is up in Vinton County. It's planted throughout Ohio, but it's not a common landscape plant at all. It is a relative of ash. It's in the olive family, so we would expect it to have opposite leaf arrangement and opposite branching, and indeed it does. Leaves are almost always going to be paired. Leaves will get larger than this, almost 6 inches in length. The edge of the leaf, or the margin of the leaf, is toothless, so it has what we call an entire margin with no teeth. What makes this tree so attractive are these flowers. The petals are very long and strap-like. Male and female flowers are pretty similar. It's very fragrant. Lilac is also in the olive family, so it's got that odor. It's very similar to lilac. Very beautiful flowers. Another common name for this plant is old man's beard, so I might kind of resemble this plant this time of year. And the other thing, this is typically not a single stem tree. Even though it's called fringe tree, it's more of a shrub. Occasionally in the landscape you'll see large stems, but typically it's going to be multiple stemmed like this. This is fringe tree, white fringe tree, or old man's beard.
Brooke Beam, our technology guru for the Southern Ohio Farm Show, is going to present to us video production segment in regards to storytelling, lighting, technology, and sound.
So you're trying to make a film. That's great. So here's some tips that we can help to get you started on the right foot with your filmmaking career. So think about your lighting. So right now when I'm filming this, it's about 8:30. So sunset is about in 5 minutes from now. So I chose this time of the day because, one, it's cooler. 2, I'm not fighting a lot of overhead light, but I also still have enough natural light that I'm able to see and that I look presentable. If I were to film at the height of the day, when the sun is directly above, I'd have a lot of light right on my face. I'd also probably have to wear sunglasses so I wasn't squinting the entire time in the time I was trying to record myself. You also need to be very cognizant about sounds. So right now I have some birds and I can hear some insects. There's a little bit of traffic at the road, but there's not a lot of other noises that are distracting. However, it depends where you're going to be filming. If you're going to be filming at a fairgrounds or if you're going to a public space.
As getting to be spending time in all the different barns, watching everyone get to show.
Let's say it's a ball game or something like that. There's a lot of noise there, but there's also a lot of noise on a farm. So you need to consider, are you going to be around tractors or animals or other things that are going to be loud? And if you have to say yes to any of those, and you're trying to have some sort of a narrative, how do you control that so that people can still hear what you're trying to say? So there's 3 components to that on how you can record it. The first is a voiceover. A voiceover is where you record the narration and then have some kind of you would have the rest of your video over top. You could use B-roll to help tell the story if you're going to use the voiceover, so that way it's still visually stimulating and they can see what you're discussing. And the third step is to record the interview in some quiet place. Perhaps if you can record it at home, that's great because you could film in your bedroom or record yourself in your bedroom where there's lots of soft surfaces like pillows and blankets, perhaps carpet or a rug to absorb the echoes. If you're not going to be able to be filming somewhere where you have those types of environments, pick some place that's quiet, is free from metal surfaces or air conditioners or other things that have loud noises that you might not notice unless you're really paying attention to your surroundings. And the next component, a lot of what we do in Extension is essentially documentary filmmaking. So we try to tell the story, we're trying to tell things that are timely and factual and also truthful. So documentary films, while there's a very broad spectrum of documentary films and there's several modes of documentary filmmaking, you're not going to become a famous documentarian overnight. And it's important to note that everybody has a learning curve and that you can learn a lot from other people before you. So one of the best ways to learn about film is to watch film. And you can learn so much by what other people have been doing and the mistakes that they have made or their successes. So just because you're not Michael Moore or Errol Morris or Ken Burns overnight, don't get discouraged. You can get there too, as long as you keep trying and keep creating things. So there's 3 different types of presentation modes that really can help make your film a success. So the first, if you're having a narration component, like what I'm doing right now, would be a stand-up presenter type style. It's also similar to what is done on the news. You can also use B-roll to make this much more interesting, which is what you've been seeing on the other components of this segment. The more things that are out there that you can use as a visual stimulation, the more likely the people are to keep their attention. So there are several things that I use and that you can use as well. So to help increase your B-roll. B-roll isn't just one type of thing. There's a variety of things that you can use. So the first is drones. You can really have a different perspective by looking from above. You can also use action shots. And action shots can be anything from an up-close shot. They can be mounted on something that's moving. There's so many different things that you can do to be creative with this. The next component is time-lapse photography. Now, my favorite documentary film is Psalm Into the Bottle. And I really like this film because it is so simplistic on how they've made it. Now granted, it's a professional documentary film. It has a lot of advanced features to the film on how they've created it. But a lot of their imagery is time-lapse photography. And so they're taking these beautiful time lapses of rural areas and showcasing how storms approach these farms and vineyards and how a harvest season progresses, all with time lapse. And it's something that everybody can do as long as they have a smartphone that has a time-lapse feature. So while you can make your time lapses more advanced by adding motion to them, everybody is capable of producing a time lapse that is interesting. And finally, the next component that can be used is something that you can incorporate your family in as well. Stop motion photography can be used any items that you might have around the house. It's essentially taking a series of pictures that are stitched into a video. So to do stop motion, we have to consider the frame rate. The frame rate for high definition videos is 24 frames per second. So if you wanted to have it at a standard frame rate for high definition, you'd have to have 24 pictures per second of film. And while that sounds very complicated, there's a free app that you can download for your phone called Stop Motion that can help you learn these different tricks. And it also stitches your pictures into one video file, so by the time you're finished with the app, you've got a finished stop motion product. And finally, the last component that you could do that's relatively easy is what we called an in-the-field conversation. So you would take your camera and your tripod and simply go on a walk. It's not as easy, it's not as fluid, it's much more steady if you use a tripod or something, but you can do so much by just having a walk and going on having a conversation in the field. So we hope that these tactics have helped you with your filmmaking progress. We hope these examples are also going to help you spark some creativity in the things that you're trying to create. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we'd absolutely love to help you with your filmmaking career, whether it's for your home, your small business, or for your educational purposes.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. And again, remember, if you ever need any additional information on any of these topics or would like to follow up with additional questions, please reach out to any of your local extension offices and we'll be sure to help you out. Hopefully we'll see you back here next week on August 19th for our next episode of the Southern Ohio Farm Show.